This one's Prince William. He's been criticised by animal rights activists for taking Prince George on a shoot. He took him along to a hunt with other senior royals while on a family holiday in Scotland. They were killing birds such as grouse. I mean, Nicola, this is a very traditional thing to do for that family.
Of course, it's traditional for the royal family, but it's just another case of when posh people do something like taking their children to a shooting range or a hunt, it's seen as traditional. Whereas I think if, you know, the commoners amongst us took a 7-year-old to a firing range, probably social services would get in touch. And it's not just the animal rights issue. I'm a vegetarian. I'm very much against hunting for sport. I think that this just shows, we hoped, didn't we, that Kate and William would bring the new era of the royal family and bring them more in touch with people like ourselves. And I think this is probably going to work against William in that respect. Children just shouldn't be exposed to that. I understand there's an argument where you want to show your child maybe where your food has come from, but let's face it, the royal family's food, they can afford to shop somewhere else and go out and shoot it in order to have a meal for dinner. I'm very disappointed.
Rob, can I pick up on something that Nicola said there, just bounce this off you, is that certainly other parts of the world are much better at understanding across the generations where our food comes from. And so is this an example of, as Nicola said, showing your children that your food isn't magically suddenly appearing in a supermarket pre-packed and perfect, that in actual fact that this is where it comes from and you make your choice as to whether or not you like that?
Quite so. I mean, look, first of all, I'm amongst a group of people, millions of us, that simply don't understand how you could look at a beautiful creature and kill it. And frankly, what that does to you as a human being, what joy you get out of it. Certainly in the case of great game hunting, it should be banned full stop. But in this case, exactly as you say, Phil, the bottom line is that they don't shoot just for sport, as it's described. They eat the food. And unlike Nicola, I'm not a vegetarian, and so I would require a great deal of moral gymnastics to say this was terrible if subsequently, when they kill the grouse, they go and eat it. I mean, that's sadly what happens. And young people do need to understand. We all need to understand where our food comes from. We also need to get a greater and better understanding of the countryside. One of the things that's quite clear to me, it's not just in the past about misunderstandings between people whose lives are different from our own, but the difference between towns and cities. And shooting sports, especially shooting sports where people eat the food, supports a whole economic community. And the grouse is then used and eaten by local people, used by local restaurants. No doubt Phil Vickery will talk about it in due course as well. It is important that we know that it's not clean. It is not a nice thing, but animals are shot and killed for us to eat. And for those of us who are not vegetarian, also to enjoy. I'm sorry, Nicola, but they are.
No, that's okay. But I think that if you want to teach children about where their food comes from, don't take them on a shoot, take them to a battery farm and see where the actual food comes from, because there's this romanticized idea, isn't there, that every bird is going to be individually shot by one person and perfectly packaged and brought to your door. That's not what happens. So if you are going to want to show children how their food is made,
battery farming is very different, and we would all agree with you about the ethical treatment of animals. Battery farming is unacceptable, and we all should stand shoulder to shoulder to campaign against that sort of thing, just as we should about the cruelty towards chickens and should be mindful about shopping for free-range eggs, etc. That's not the same thing. I mean, these birds had lived freely until they were shot and then eaten. To some extent, it's probably more ethical than a lot of modern and unhappy farming techniques. Guys.